Everyone, just drop in the chat if you can hear us okay and that you can all see the slides. We just want to make sure that you can see the slides and that you can hear us clearly. There's both Chris and I on here and Grace as well. So Chris, say hi just to make sure everyone can hear you.
Hey everyone, hope you're all good.
Lovely.
I'm not going on camera. I think that's probably a good thing because I've got a face for radio. Cool. Okay, so we've got somebody that says they can hear and see. That's awesome.
Brilliant.
Let's publish that. Cool. So shall we rock and roll?
Yep.
Marvelous. All right. So big shout out to Freya and Grace. Thank you very much for having me. I'm super excited for this, actually. Yeah, it's not often that I get to do overly live demos and hope for the best. So this should get pretty interesting. So yeah, this is what I call a thunderbolt of functional awesome, and I hope the session does the session name justice, because yeah, it can get pretty out of hand. So anyway, who am I? My name is Chris Huntingford. I'm a partner technical architect here at Microsoft. So if you want to follow me or grab me on social or hit me up on Twitter or whatever it is we all doing these days during COVID, you can catch me on aka.ms/Chris H. Or you can go ahead and scan that QR code. I know that the slides and the video will be available afterwards. But yeah, I just wanted to point out one thing real quick, and I know this is a bit bonkers, but I'm one of these people that is a little bit eccentric, right? So the presentations aren't the norm. So I hope that's okay with everyone. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to engaging. I know that some of you on the chat might be really keen on asking some questions. Please just chuck them into the chat. I'll try and bake them into my responses. And yeah, let's do this thing, right? So today I have a really awesome job, right? My job is to talk to you about one of my favorite things, which is the Power Platform, but also to show you some really cool stuff. And that's really important, right? Because it's all very well talking to you about epic tech, but if we don't show it to you, if we don't show you how it all fits together, it's kind of pointless. And later on in the demo, you're going to definitely need your phones, right? So just jump off of Tinder or Candy Crush or whatever it is you're doing right now. And yeah, you're going to need your phones to interact with me a little bit. I know we can't chat directly, but this should get pretty interesting. So a couple of things I wanted to point out. We always like chucking these slides up in the beginning of presentations, but it's actually quite important, right? So first things first is the number of the requirement for digital app build or digital app dev or mobile app dev or whatever we're calling it these days has grown substantially. It's absolutely massive, right? And actually, we've got a thing called the great developer shortage, where IT departments and even suppliers really struggle to deliver these solutions or applications. One of the most important people in our organization, Sachin Adela, actually said in the next 5 years, 5 million new apps will be built. That's more than the last 40. And I mean, that's crazy, right? Think about the number of solutions that will be created. That means if all of us on this call decided to down tools and just build apps, we would just not be able to cut the mustard on that number, right? And then the other thing that's really key is by 2024, low-code application build or application dev will basically be responsible for more than 65% of application dev. Now that's crazy, because think about it, like we're so used to being these people that write code and sit in basements drinking Pepsi and eating pizza, coding stuff in and all these amazing languages. But effectively at Microsoft, we reckon that that's about the number. And you also say, well, Chris, on 17.5% of stats made up on the spot. Well, no, this is all backed by actual sources, reputable sources like Gartner and Forrester and et cetera, et cetera. So it's important to understand the opportunity out there. Something else very key is when you look at the motivations for digital transformation, decision makers are basically saying, and I know some of you on this call are in this role, are basically saying that IT application development is gravitating to low code, no code. We need to build stuff faster. So think about the fact that when you have a problem, you don't call the Ghostbusters, you need somebody to build a low code, no code application or solution. And that's where we come in, right? Now, the thing is, the time to value is really, really important, because previously, if you had a problem in your organization and you asked somebody that did custom dev, sure, they'll be able to solve the problem. And I can guarantee they'll probably do it really well. But the speed at which they solve it is really important. And that's where low code, no code comes in, right? And that's one of the things we've been focusing on. But the other thing that's really key, and this is a really important point, right? I bet you some of you have been to those Microsoft events, or if you go to any other competitive events like Salesforce or Google or whatever, you'll have somebody standing on stage talking to you about data. Now, data is of paramount importance to application development and application build. And actually, data is the most important thing when solving a problem, right? Now, what's awesome is in a lot of your organizations, you've collected a lot of data, but I bet you not all of you know what to do with that data. Not all of you know how to create those actionable insights. And actually, here's the thing, because you have the data, we can augment that data with solutions like Power Apps and in holistic view, the Power Platform. So you've already got a lot of that information in your organization. Now, this is one of my favorite slides, and a lot of people laugh at me for this because they think, wow, man, you know, that's a pretty boring slide. But I'll tell you why it's one of my favorites. So I'm an actual ex-IT nerd. You know, I used to work in an IT department. Believe it or not, I spent my days in server rooms. And this was many moons ago before I joined Microsoft. And one of the things that I did was I had to control a lot of the interactions with the business, right? So every time they wanted a piece of software or a solution, I was basically the person that was in control of that. And I remember a scenario, somebody came up to me and said, hey, Chris, I'd like to do this. And I said, look, you know, we just don't have the time, we don't have the budget, we don't have the internal skills. And because of that, you know, we're not really going to be able to do that. We're going to have to find another way. So you know what they did? They went onto the internet and they downloaded weird stuff like some strange CRM system. And you know what was even stranger? When they did that, I had no clue. I literally had no idea, right? Now, the business will solve a problem whether you like it or not. IT folks, it's going to happen. Business, I'd encourage you to talk to the IT people because if you don't talk to them, you're creating a thing called shadow IT. And shadow IT is a very dangerous thing in an organization. The reason I say that is because I get it, business folk, your expectations aren't being met. You know, you don't have the ability to generate those amazing solutions or get those amazing solutions to solve your problems. But because you have shadow IT, the business and your managers can't effectively trust the data that you have. How do they know the solution you're using is trusted? And therefore, how do they know the data is right? So you lack insights. You're not able to track and measure performance. Now, that's a problem. Because if you go to your boss and you like, hey, Sarah, or hey, Jim, or whatever, and you say, listen, we got this report from System X. And they say, what system? You say, no, System X. And they're like, well, where did you get that? Oh, no, I went onto the deep, dark web and I downloaded it. Oh, well, IT policy equals broken. So I'll tell you what, in the Power Platform, one of the things we use and look at all the time is this concept of sort of being open around the solutions that you're building. So IT folk, here's the saying, better a governed free market you know than a black market you don't know. So I'll say it again. Better a governed free market you know than a black market you don't know. So in the Power Platform, we give you the tools to set up those digital guide rails in an IT department, but also give the business the opportunity to build awesome solutions to solve their problems. Think tools like Power Apps and Flow are going to become the new Excel, right? Where Excel Armageddon is rife in organizations, but everyone uses it. Well, at least, you know, with Power Apps and Flow, we can govern that within the Power Platform layer. Now, here's something interesting. You know, I bet a lot of you on the call probably have these tools internally already. I remember many moons ago when I first got to the UK, and the accent is South African, and no, I'm not sorry about the rugby, even though it was a long time ago. Haha. But one of the things I noticed, I walked into a housing association, and they were sticking different color post-its on their computer screens. Yeah, I mean, I was like, what are you guys doing? And they all know these are reminders. And I said, well, you are aware that Outlook has got the task functionality and you can just send an email. And they said, yes, we know, but there's no way we can manage that. And I'm like, well, with papers, you can manage that? They're like, well, no, but at least it's more visible. And actually that hit a thing in my head because I thought, you know what? That makes sense, right? You want to make this information as visible to people as quickly as possible within the organization. Now, a lot of you are probably using Power Apps or Flow in your org and you don't even know it. And if you do know it, that's awesome. You should actually chat to Rizal about their Center of Excellence capability that they've got internally, right? It's a really great set of functionality that'll help you understand what's being used. But very, very key to know that you've got this stuff internally with your Office license. If you'd like to build further and connect to business productivity solutions, you got to pay the money, and that's for premium connectivity. But if you don't and you're just getting started, awesome. You know, you can leverage Power Apps and Flow to your heart's content. Now, a couple of other things is when we're looking at organizations, a lot of the time, so I've worked in pretty much every vertical you can even think of. I've even worked in legal, and if you could see what I look like, you'll probably be, wow, that's odd. But a lot of the time, these organizations, they'll have a problem and they'll think to themselves, you know what? We're going to go and buy a SaaS solution. We're basically going to go to the software equivalent of M&S, and we're going to go browse the shelves for a solution that will solve our problem. And that's cool because go right ahead. It might solve that problem, but you probably got hundreds of other problems in your organization that need solving. And here's the other thing, you don't want to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of SaaS solutions that you then as an IT person have to manage. And as a business person, it doesn't necessarily solve 100% of what you're looking for. So what do you then do? You go and get somebody to build you something cool. Now, custom development is awesome, and I respect developers greatly. In fact, I believe that developers define the digital bricks that we build our solutions with. But here's the thing. If you have no one to support that solution, you, my friends, have got a thing called technical debt. And what technical debt means is that you have debt in your organization from a technical perspective that has no one to support it. As an example, Grace decides that she is going to be a developer and she implements a solution for you and then decides to go and fight crime on other planets like Captain Marvel. Well, yeah, who's going to look after that code? It's not going to be Grace, and that means you have to hire somebody to upskill and learn that. But with the Power Platform, we solve a lot of problems, and actually we fill the rest of those gaps in your organization that you may not necessarily know you have. You may find that you have Excel Armageddon, hundreds of spreadsheets lying around, spreadsheets on shared drives, and we've already proven that Excel is not the most reliable data storage facility. You can go and ask the NHS about that. Things like shadow IT, right? Again, I've mentioned that. We solved that shadow IT problem very quickly with those digital guide rails that we had set up in the background. But as I said, every organization will have these elements of technical debt that the Power Platform can resolve for you. We're not looking to replace every line of business solution. We can, but that's not the goal. The goal is to build, not replace. We can augment anything you've got. It's pretty straightforward, and I'll tell you why later. But remember, you can fill those digital gaps, and we call that the app gap with the Power Platform. So if you take a look at our mission statement here at Microsoft, the goal is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Now you're going, man, we've heard that a million times. What does it actually mean? And sometimes it can be slightly vague when you look at the actual meaning of it, but the whole goal around this is to make everyone's life easier. That's the goal. You make everyone's life easier. If you can save people time, they can achieve more. Now, one of the things that I was thinking about recently was, if I look at an organization and I can save that organization time, I know that they will spend less time mucking around with data and things that they shouldn't have to, and more time engaging the customer and therefore building relationships. And I'd like to say that's pretty evident in our customer base. We focus on loads of key industries, and I can tell you that there's more than just what you're seeing on the slides here. But one of the exciting things is that there is a space for Power Platform for everyone, no matter what industry you work in. If you've ever been to Heathrow Airport, congratulations, you've encountered the Power Platform. If you've ever traveled on an Arriva bus, congratulations, you've encountered the Power Platform. If you've ever leveraged PayPal, congratulations, you've encountered the Power Platform. And you'll start seeing the customer stories flourish and become more and more relevant to you as we go through the slide deck. Now, a couple of other things that are really key. This stuff is getting big, and it's getting big very quick. In fact, the Power Platform wave is rising hugely. If you take a look at 98% of Fortune 500 organizations are using Power Platform. That's amazing. I mean, that is an amazing number. I obviously love it to be 100, but that's just an incredible number. The most important number on the slide, though, right, is over 3.5 million monthly active developers. Now, normally in a presentation, I have a really cool Lego spaceship that I bring out at this point and show you what a developer actually is, but I'm going to try and explain it to you. A developer is not somebody that writes code. A developer is somebody that is able to create something. I'm a Lego developer. I'm really good at building cool things out of Lego. In fact, if you follow me on LinkedIn, and you'll see you saw on my original slide, the maker wording over there, I actually built that out of Lego. I love building stuff. For me, as a maker, somebody that's a Lego developer if I equate that to the Power Platform, I don't necessarily write code, but I'm able to build really awesome solutions that solve problems for organizations. I am a Power Platform developer. Now, here's the thing. When you look at the monthly active users, that's growing even bigger and larger. Now, that's so important for us because the more people we have building stuff, the bigger the platform grows. And it becomes this awesome sort of neural network of people sharing information. That's the exciting part of is watching where this platform is going. So one of the things that we found, and I always quite like this slide because I think when you break it down, it's the digital transformation democratization outcomes. Now, let's just take a look at what that actually means. First of all, with the Power Platform, one of the key things is we're trying to empower innovation, right? We're trying to empower growth of innovation. Now, that's really important in an organization because when you start thinking about the type of thing that you're doing, okay, we want to empower people to build and create and grow and customize and generate. That's the goal here. The more people do that, the less reliant they are on IT to do that. The more you can get business users to create their own solutions, like subject matter expert focus, the less IT you guys have to worry about making the icon on a form cornflower blue. I'll tell you something. I remember walking into an insurer, a couple of years ago, and I ended up building out a solution for first notification of loss. Some of you on the call are like, what on earth is that? And I'll explain. First notification of loss is like a pre-claim. So say, for example, you spill coffee on your laptop, never done that. And then you have to phone up the insurer. The insurer will say, can you give me more information? And actually, they're logging an FNOL. It's the first notification of something breaking, right? It's not yet a claim. Claims are audited and regulated. FNOLs aren't necessarily, so they'll pre-check everything. And the whole idea is I knew nothing about first notification of loss. However, the lady that I was working with at that time in that insurer knew everything about it. So you know what? We built the solution together. I did all the nerdy techie stuff with the data, and she did all the awesome processy stuff that I really was not keen on. The other thing that's really important is to activate intelligent decisions, right? So we call them data-driven insights. To use data to inform you better, okay? Now, when you're looking at the areas of the Power Platform, elements of that will help you do it, right? So tools like Power Automate and AI Builder embedded within the solutions that you're building are going to drive better decision making. And that's really exciting because think about the fact that when you've got AI infused into things, you don't have to do as much work. You can spend more time focusing on relationships. And then the famous one, which is streamlining business process. A lot of people think when I talk about business process, they're like, oh, you're talking about tools like Power Automate and business process flows. And that's not actually true because the business process has got lots of gates, lots of ways in and lots of ways out. But the faster and more automated you make that, and the easier the process is to run, the more people you will find engage with that process. I'm going to give you an example. Let's use the process of listening to music. And I know it's not completely relevant to this, but there was an organization that released a MP3 player, and that MP3 player had hundreds of buttons all over it. Did everything but make you toast and give you foot rubs. Okay. And you know what? A few people bought it, but they really struggled with it because the process to listen to music was really difficult. There was another organization, who I shall not name, who released an MP3 player a couple of years later, and it had 3 buttons. It had next, back, pause, play. But the process to listen to music was so simple. Everything else was under the hood. You weren't paying for the MP3 player, you were paying for a subscription to something else. All of that automation made somebody's job listening to music very, very simple. And that's what we need to be doing in our organizations today. So if I'm able to quantify this, and if you look at the total economic impact of Power Apps, now I don't necessarily like to call it Power Apps, so I'm going to stick to Power Platform because it is a wider platform. Okay, there's a lot of numbers on this slide. That's awesome. We can talk about 188% return on investment over 3 years, and the one I love is the overall improved efficiencies. 1,650 users save 1.6 hours per week. Now, if you add that up from a time to value perspective, that's mental. That's a lot of time. Okay. In fact, that's a hell of a lot of time. And if time is money, well, that's a lot of money as well. If you're starting to look at the reduced third-party license costs, now I know licensing is a sensitive subject. Sure it is, but value is in the eye of the beholder. And if you understand the licensing of the Power Platform, you will end up saving yourself a lot of money very quickly, because solutions now are architected based on licensing and vice versa. You have to be very, very careful about how you build things. And that's why we work with partners like Rizal, because they do understand this. So when you're building out solutions, you actually have the propensity to save a hell of a lot of money. When we're looking at the sort of payback, the payback is a really interesting one, because a lot of the time you can generate that payback in less than 6 months. Now, this is also dependent on the process leverage to implement the platform and the business problems being solved. And there's another slide later I'll talk about. But I want you to remember, if you take anything from that slide, just remember the payback in less than 6 months in certain organizations, because we're going to talk about that shortly. So you can actually see that the economic impact is massive. So this is awesome. I've spoken a bit about the Power Platform, but I want to break into it, right? And I kind of love this description of a flexible toolbox enabling citizen developers, business applications expert, and pro developers to build solutions. Let me transmogrify that a little bit, which transmogrify means to change magically. I'm going to say that a Power Platform is a set of interlocking digital bricks that you can use to build epic solutions to solve problems, okay? Because I keep on referring back to Lego, and I know it's crazy, but I am a nerd, right? Now that's the thing, because you can enable pretty much everyone in your organization with the Power Platform. So let's break the ice. What is it? Tell me what it is. Awesome, no problem. So the Power Platform is actually pretty easy to understand. The first thing I want to point out here is that everyone, first of all, looks at those 4 little sort of icons or logos on the top and goes, oh, cool, Power Apps. Don't look at that. Close your eyes. I should have animated this slide. I regret it instantly. What I want you to do is look at the bottom piece where it says Data Connectors, AI Builder, and Common Data Service. Now, everything on the top is a consequence of things at the bottom, okay? So we've got these things called data connectors. They are probably the most powerful parts of the platform. See what I did there? Data connectors allow you to connect to pretty much anything. And if there is no pre-built data connector for it, guess what? You can build your own one. That's pretty awesome, right? So if you've got a solution and you need to connect to, I don't know, say Salesforce, go right ahead, right? You can build out a Power App that connects up to Salesforce. If you want to build an automation that connects up to Oracle, go right ahead. We've got an Oracle connector as well. We want to be able to build and augment all the awesome stuff that you've got in your businesses. We don't want to have to replace everything. I used to work as a Dynamics person, and Dynamics is effectively Dynamics customer engagement is a Power App, right? It's made from the same digital bricks as Power Apps. And I always say to people, when I used to walk into Salesforce customers, I would go, replace Salesforce immediately. Now I'm like, awesome, man. Salesforce is cool. Let's just work alongside it. You can do so much cool stuff with this. So the connectors are really key. The next thing I want to talk about is AI Builder. Now you're going, oh man, another Microsoft person talking about AI. Let's just forget it. But I'm gonna make this a little bit more interesting. So AI is a bit like a horror movie. What? Why is AI like a horror movie? Well, I'll tell you why. Artificial intelligence is often scary. People worry about it. So think about that movie Paranormal Activity. I mean, I'm not a horror movie fan, so I'm probably getting this horribly wrong. I mean, the last time I watched this was years ago. But there's a scene in the movie when they walk into this creepy room and the door goes behind them. And everyone freaks out and they're like, oh my gosh, the door opened and closed. Did you see that, Jeff? And Jeff's like, yeah, that was really scary. Can I tell you guys something? Doors open and close. That's what they do. The fact is the door closed and you don't know why it did. And that's AI. A lot of the time when you're leveraging artificial intelligence, you don't understand what's happening under the hood. And because of that, it terrifies people. I'll tell you what, I don't think Arnold Schwarzenegger and Neo from the Matrix are going to bust out of the clouds anytime soon, taking out robots and Terminators. I don't think Skynet's going to take over. So AI is now being democratized in the platform, and it's very easy to use and understand. You can infuse artificial intelligence into everything, and I'm going to show you how to do that shortly. And finally, on the data layer, we've got this beautiful, sexy thing called the Common Data Service. Now, that's probably the first time in a call you've ever heard somebody call the Common Data Service sexy, but it really is, because as a SQL nerd, I used to spend hours and hours building out relational data structures. I can now do that in 1/20th of the time. Yes, it's 8 times the price, but time is money, my friends. So you can create these epic data structures, manage your data in a more compliant, secure, and governed way, and not worry about things like auditability and security. That's all taken care of for you. The layer on the top is the piece that most people focus on, and that's effectively what would you call your interaction layer. You've got Power BI, which is the way that we leverage and understand data. We've got Power Apps, which is the way in which we interact with data. We've got Power Automate, which helps us automate processes, and Power Virtual Agents, which allows us to create this intelligent virtual agent layer or intelligent correspondence layer to interact with data. Now, those are all great, right? Because when you break those down, actually, there's a couple of things that they're really good at. But before I move on to the next slide, there's a very thin blue line at the bottom, and that's the line that everyone misses, and I nearly missed. But the Center of Excellence, which provides governance, compliance, and security, is basically a wrapper for all these things. Friends, that is where your digital guide rails live. IT folk, all your digital guide rails live in the Center of Excellence. You can control the amount of data that gets moved in and out of your organization using things like data loss prevention. If you want to block somebody from creating a lead every single time, creating a Twitter post every single time they put a lead in Salesforce, you can do that using the data loss prevention. You can lock things down and open things up. You can classify things differently if you'd like. And that's really important. So within that Center of Excellence, you have got control over everything people are doing with the Power Platform. So if you look at the goals, right, and this is the 4 A's. Power BI allows you to analyze data, right? Understand what is happening, create actionable insights. Power Apps, act on data, leverage information and do more awesome things, make people's lives a lot easier, drive process. Power Automate, automate the way people are interacting with your solutions. If somebody doesn't have to fill in a field, don't put it on the form. If you can get the information from somewhere else using Power Automate, rather do that, right? You don't need to have, I'll tell you what, one of my first projects I ever actually did with Power Apps was I had to build a trade show application, and they wanted like 40 fields on the form. And I said to them, why? Nobody's going to fill in 40 fields at a trade show. I just want to go drink beer. And they said, oh, but it's important. I said, no, there's other ways to do this. Can I tell you, 40 fields on a form is really easy to do. 40 fields that do 40 things on a form is really easy to do. 5 fields on a form that do 40 things is really easy to do. That sounds like a Dr. Seuss poem. Try and say that 15 times fast. Now that's really key, because the more you can automate, the easier it is for people to use your system. And then finally, the assistance layer with Power Virtual Agents. Analyze data from virtual agents, talk to people using automated chatbots, trigger flows. So instead of having people manually put information into a form, why not create a conversation layer to get them to do that? Change the user interface. And that's what I found really useful. Now, folks, at this point, you are going to need your mobile phones, because we're going to do something cool. All right. And I am going to put it in the chat. So I want to talk to you about a real life scenario. So this is a real thing. Okay. Hopefully, most of you live in a house. If you don't live in a house, tell me. If you live in a boat or a tree house, that would make this really interesting. But I'm going to drop a link in the comments here, and we're going to call it aka.mslrg. Now, we're going to create a live demo scenario. What I'm hoping you'll do is either scan that QR code or fill in that form I've just sent you. Now, the goal here is that we've built a very basic council complaints management solution. Without kidding you, you can build this entire solution in an hour. Okay, you can build this whole thing in an hour, providing you have the right digital guide rails set up in the background. So like I said, it's very easy to build stuff as long as the data is being set up correctly, and I will show you all of that. So Council X have got a huge issue tracking and managing complaints. Big surprise, right? Now, what happens is various citizens in each area need a way to share information with the council really quickly. I don't know about you, but I live in Reading, and the Reading County Council sites don't even have their mobile phone number available. So you can't call these dudes. You've basically got to find a way to interact with them. What they've also got is social care workers and neighborhood inspectors that wander around with their mobile phone, taking photos of things and interacting with citizens and talking to them and making sure their complaints are logged and managed. Now, they don't have a centralized system for that. They don't even have centralized reporting. How do they know that Mrs. Miggins hasn't logged her complaint 16 times over? It's a bit scary, right? Well, we're going to help them solve that problem, right? We're going to be digital Ghostbusters today. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically build out a very simple solution to help them manage their council complaints. Now, Like any great British cooking show, when you watch them putting the cake in the oven, in 5 minutes they take the cake out. They've obviously pre-baked the cake, but they did a lot of pre-baking purely because of time constraints. And I'd also like to leave some time for questions at the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to go right into the demo. Now, the thing that's pretty key from a technical perspective is if you remember this slide over here with Power Automate, Power Apps, Power Virtual Agents, and Power BI. So we'll go back to this one with your common data service layer. I'll be leveraging pretty much every single one of these layers except for Power Virtual Agents to solve my solution. So what does that look like from an architectural perspective? Well, it's pretty easy, actually. This is what it looks like. So effectively, we've got our common data service at the very bottom layer, storing our data over there. We've got Power BI helping us report on our data. We've got Microsoft Forms or Customer Voice, where you've put your information in, or hopefully are putting your information in and sharing your awesome data with me. By the way, feel free to be as rude as you want. There is a sentiment analysis and it is hilarious demoing this, right? Some people put in some crazy stuff. Some guy put in something about badger swarms attacking his house, which was really brilliant, right? I think they classified that as antisocial behavior. You've got Power Automate, so Flow effectively managing the process and moving the data around between the points. AI Builder analyzing and doing all this cool stuff with the data, so adding sentiments, classifying the data automatically. We've got a mid-office model-driven app that helps the internal people manage the process. We've got an external social care / inspector app to help our users manage all of that. And guess what, folks? That's all been embedded in Teams. Everything we do is embedded in Teams because it is effectively the modern desktop experience. So that's our little architecture. I'll be running through the architecture as I show you things within the platform. So hopefully everyone's ready to rock and roll. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly move my screen over. So Freya or Grace, could you confirm that you could see my browser screen just in the screen share over here?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so what we are in right now is we're in a thing that we call at Microsoft, I've got to use movie voice for this, the maker experience. It is like the most Microsofty term that we've ever heard, right? So in the maker experience, this is where you build all your awesome stuff. Right, so effectively, this is where I'd go and manage my apps, I would manage my data, etc., etc. Now, what I'm going to do is, very first, I'm going to show you something, right? You can see I've got common data service there. I'm going to knock this one out really quickly because I think that this is going to be this is the tough one to explain. So the common data service is effectively an interactive data storage facility where I've managed to put my data. So if I go into data over here and I go to entities, you'll have a whole list of what we would call entities. In your language, you may call them tables. And this is effectively where I've put all my data. Now, this is quite exciting because you can create entities for anything. If you want to have an animal entity and you want to track how many legs a badger has, you can do that. You can have a vehicle entity. I've got beer types. I've got pretty much everything you can imagine. I mean, I've done some pretty bonkers demos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for LRG complaints. And this is the entity where I've put that information. Entities have properties. So think like animals have legs and ears and insects have legs. Oh, let's go there. You can actually see that my entity itself has got loads of properties. So I've got a category of the type of complaint that I would receive. I've got a confidence level, all sorts of things, right? And these fields you can create pretty quickly. I've got relationships to other tables. So as an example, if I would like to assign this complaint to a citizen, I can really easily do that because I've got a one-to-many relationship or a one-to-one relationship between citizen and complaint. Citizens might have loads of complaints. I know in my area, I've got a serial complainants. They're crazy. And actually, one of the first complaints I ever dealt with was in Wales when I got to the UK, and they were complaining about the birds chirping too loudly in the trees. Yeah, very exciting stuff, right? So I can associate complaints to citizens. If I'd like to create a new field, it's super easy. All I do is create a new field. We'll give it a name. So we're going to call this visual field of awesome. Okay. And you can make this a different type. So you can call it whatever you'd like. If I'd like a lookup, I can take lookup and look to another table if I really want to. So this is what you call referential integrity. Best way to explain referential integrity is the movie Back to the Future. Some of you might be too young for that. I'm a nerd. But effectively, when Marty McFly goes back to the future and his parents may die, Marty McFly starts to disappear. That means the parent-child relationship was honored. Very similar here. You cannot have a child record without parent records, and you want to maintain that referential integrity between records. You can do that using lookups, and it's built automatically for you out the box, right? So I can pretty much select any field type. In this scenario, we're just going to pick something like I don't know, we can add an image, okay? So we'll make that an image file. Cool. What that means is that anytime I want to upload an image against a record, I can do that. So Common Data Service is really great, really easy way to generate your entity structures, your relational data structure, as well as build out your attributes against that relational data structure. It's really quick, really easy, and actually probably one of the core and most important elements of the Power Platform today. Now that's all good and well. What you can also see is I've got data over here, so I have lists of information. So if you guys captured anything in that form, it would have landed up here. So all I've done is I've given you a very quick view of where the data is, and that's in the Common Data Service. But how did it get there? How did I get the data from form/customer voice into the Common Data Service? Well, I'll tell you something interesting. Out the box, customer voice has an integration to the Common Data Service, but often the entities can be quite, often the Q&A functionality can be quite messy. So I've just mapped it directly from Microsoft Forms using Power Automate. So I've been a bit naughty. So all I did, you remember I've got my entity, the place where my data lives, called LRG complaints. If I go into my flows, Power Automate flows, and I'm doing all of this from the maker experience, right? What will happen is that it'll open up my flow view. So remember, all I'm showing you is that little blue sliver over here, right? I'll go into my flow view. You can see it says create complaints form. If I click on that, I'll actually see any flows that were run. So you guys are awesome. You've actually captured some records. Thanks so much. I really appreciate that. What's cool about flow actually is I can go in and I can check out if you all have been behaving or not. So let's have a look. Let's see if anyone put in something cheeky. Well, there's the history. So the first thing, we'll just take a look at the sentiment to see if anyone was rude. Oh, somebody's been very rude. I don't know if I want to open this. Let's do it. Let's just do it, right? So let's see what people put in. And it actually tells me the information. The binmen are too noisy. I totally agree with you, right? Real problem. But that's fine because all this is process. All you're looking at, oh, by the way, if you used your real email address, you'll get a delightful email back from me with some information on where you can learn this stuff. Yes, again, I am a nerd, right? But all that's happened is I've used Forms, Microsoft Forms, Power Automate, and mapped it to the Common Data Service. Okay, whoops, let's get that window back up and running again. Now, the next thing you would have filled in is you would have filled in a Microsoft form. So I'm going to go to portal.office.com. I just want to show you the form to make sure, just to let you know I'm not speaking porcupines. This is real. Whoops. This form's over there. Yes, eventually they will rebrand to customer voice. I'm pretty certain, or they'll just completely move it over. Here's my council complaints. And you can see this is the form I built. So if you want to add questions, it's really easy. You can share it with everyone. So using a QR code or an awesome link. And I can even track the responses directly in here. So just to let you know, all I'm doing here is I'm showing you Microsoft Forms. So all you've done is you filled that in. It's used that and put that in there. So Microsoft Forms has used Power Automate to put the information in the Common Data Service. Normally I would build this from scratch, but purely because of time, I'm not gonna. Now, one of the things I did promise you is that, well, we've got that information, but actually, how do we work with it? How do we analyze the information using Power BI? Well, the first things first is I created this glorious Power BI report. Now, I want to tell you something. My Power BI reports are not pretty. It's not because I have no talent. It is 100% because I have no taste, right? I create ugly Power BIs. I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm a very functional dude, okay? I like colors. If you could see what was behind me right now, you would be laughing. Now, here's the thing. I can tell you right now, a lot of my cases are associated in Birmingham, a lot of my complaints. I would have more expected this to be Reading, considering that's where I live. And if I click on antisocial behavior, oh goodness, you can see there's been a bit of a spike in July 2019. I don't know what was going on then. It might have been a cage fighting match or a football game or something. I mean, anything could have gone on. So what we can do is we can actually analyze the data a little bit further. You can see most of it came in via phone, weirdly enough. So ASP, That's pretty much, that makes sense because you've got some noisy people next door. Maybe people are phoning in. And you can drill down. You can actually take a look at all this information. Where are most of my potholes located? Oh, wow. There are 2 potholes over there. Okay, that's cool. They're doing pretty well, right? So what's great is that I can actually interact with that data. I can also plug in artificial intelligence, and using the key influences from Power BI, I can understand more about that data. So if I look at child and education complaints, most of my complaints are resolved with a satisfaction layer of 10. Now that's key because education is important, right? Most of them are logged in June, also March, and October and January. Okay, that's a bit weird, right? So I've got loads of complaints coming in over those 4 months. So let's flick out to who likes council tax? No one. Let's see what resolution rates of council tax is. Oh, 0. So no one is satisfied with the council tax that they're paying. Big surprise there. But also most of them are logged in February. If you go take a look at antisocial behavior, these are the key things that influence the resolution of a complaint. Oh, ASB satisfaction 1. Okay, everyone is really upset right now. So this is not where you want to be. You want to be getting satisfaction rates of 10 for ASB. So Council X, we need to have a talk, right? Now, you can make these Power BIs look as whatever way you'd like. I mean, to go give you another example of a pretty ugly dashboard that I created. This is really cool. I just decided to use graffiti for antisocial behavior, but I'm also sort of aggregating the sentiments. So most of my cases get aggregated with a sentiment of 0.35, and they're confident in the way that we're categorizing them. And most of my cases come from web. Okay. So in the Power BI layer, it's really easy for me to understand the complaints that I've received. So all that data that you guys gave me from that form, put into the common data service, I'm immediately analyzing it, right, using Power BI. Now that's all good and well, right? So we're analyzing data. How about acting on the data? How about trying to understand exactly what's going on with that data? So what if I'm Jeff and I'm in the mid office and I'm tracking all of my council complaints going in? So I'm going to click on my mid office tab over here. And folks, this is what you call a model-driven Power App. Model-driven Power Apps can only be built on top of the common data service as a data source. Okay, so that's a big heads up. And you can see I've got my local gov complaints management over there. So all I'm showing you here is I'm showing you this Power App over here, a model-driven Power App, right? Model-driven means it is reliant on the data model. So if I expand that a little bit and I take a look, whoa, look, there's loads of complaints coming in from web forms. Somehow there's a stage of somebody teaming up with Batman. I literally have no clue where that came from. I mean, you all are capturing this data, not me, all right? And look at this antisocial behavior. This is bonkers. So I'm actually going to go and take a look at some of these complaints that have been captured, and this is where we're going to see all of your data. Let's click on LRG complaints, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to sort by newest to oldest. And let's expand this a little bit to see who's crazy, right? So there are crazy people on the call. Let's have a look. It's not letting me do that. So we got somebody that rats in their car, right? Somebody, neighbors noise at 6 a.m., parties constantly. This is an elderly care facility. I just want to throw it out there. What if it's the elderly people that are partying, right? That's definitely something you've got to take a look at. Potholes, yeah, that's pretty normal. Whoa, Binman causing me distress, being sarcastically chirpy in the morning. Can I make a recommendation? Get a pack of those really awesome easy peels, let them sort of go a bit moldy and then chuck them at them. Okay, no, don't do that. Pensioners partying after 11 p.m. I respect these people, right? So this is great. You guys are giving me some great data, but can I tell you something? It automatically classified that all for you. So you can see it's got antisocial behavior and all sorts of things. So it's classified the data for me. I don't need to. So when I start extracting my reports, if I go to show charts and I go to take a look at category, right? Let's take a look, number by category. Whoa, loads of antisocial behavior going on. I don't know what's going on in this area, but we've got to have a talk, folks, because you're giving me loads of data and there's some serious pensioners causing some trouble. I've seen it before in my life. It's dangerous. So also you can see that, housing association, right? So you can see that there's a benefits. There's one that's being classified as benefits, bin collections. My bins are too full. So I'm going to pick the pensioners partying at after 11 p.m. because this, if I was a pensioner, I'd totally do this, right? Let's open this one up. Now here's something cool. You can see, first of all, that this is very certain. It's 100% certain that it's antisocial behavior based on the fact that I've taught the data model that the word partying is pretty naughty, right? So it knows that. You can also see that the sentiment analysis, it's not super upset, but it, 50-50, right? Not too many people are angry. Now, what we're going to do is if you take a look at the process, I can actually navigate my model-driven app and resolve this case or resolve this complaint by following the process. So all I'm doing is, remember, all I've done is I've logged into my model-driven app and I'm at my complaint capture process. Now watch what happens to the process. You can actually stage gate these based on things like confidence. So if I'm not very confident that this is antisocial behavior, the process will then change and have more nodes added to it for me to make sure I resolve that complaint. Now that's epic, right? So I can run through this process, off we go, next stage, fantastic, send out emails, contact the person, sorry about the pensioners, we'll try and keep them in the box a little bit, behave yourselves, all done. Fantastic, so I've resolved my case. But that's only really half of the problem, because I've gotten the information from all the forms. I've got my actionable insights. I've managed to resolve my actual complaints. But what about those folks wandering around in the neighborhoods as social care members or as inspectors? How do they start interacting with the data? And that's where tools like AI Builder and your Canvas apps come in. Now I'm going to do something a little bit dangerous here, right? I'm going to take you all a bet that I can build an app in under a minute. Right. Now, as I said, this is COVID, so you may want to get a tequila or a glass of Prosecco for this. But all we're going to do, and you're more than welcome to start the timer, we're going to go new Canvas app. Now, a Canvas app is effectively what I call an app snack. It is a very great solution for solving simple business problems. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select my data storage facility. And I did tell you that I've got a list of complaints in the common data service. So we're just going to go ahead and search for LRG complaints, right? There it is there. Now, normally what I do is I kick back, let the AI do the rest, right? The AI is going to build me the app. So I'm going to have a big sip of my green tea. It is green tea, I promise. There we are. And let's see what happens, right? So it'll construct a 3-screen application using artificial intelligence based on the data that I've got in the common data service. Just remember, there we go. There's my app. Let's see. Come on. App, are you happy or not? Let's go. Yep. Oh, it's created it. Awesome. All right. It's just decided that this needs to be like 16 layers. Oh, you know what it's done? It's put in a multiple line text field, which is cool, right? So there's my app, just to say that it actually will work. It's definitely not production ready, but it will work. Okay, so I built that in under a minute. What you can go ahead and do is then make this more awesome. So remember, all I'm doing is I'm building my Canvas app on top of the common data service. The model-driven app solves the process. The Canvas app is the thing that provides those mobile users or frontline workers the ability to interact with that data really quickly. So first things first, I'm going to pop into my browse gallery. That looks horrendous. We're going to go ahead and fix that, right? So we're going to say the body is definitely not going to be, yeah, we'll leave that. We don't want to have our image. We don't want to have to capture an image over there. So let's actually change the way that this works, right? Let's make this, no, what is it? Oh, there we go. We'll leave that image there. Sorry, I'm just looking for the box. There we go. 1 second. Right, we're going to change that to, no, I'm just going to delete it outright, make it a bit easier. Cool, there we go. So you can see you can edit the way that the app looks. You can change the actual gallery items itself. And what we'll do is we'll make sure that we can add in a couple other things. So let's stick in, let's make it a little bit smaller there. Sorry, I'm just messing with the UI a little bit. There we are. Select our first cell. And what we want to do is just make sure we edit the fields. Cool. Change the unique ID to the stage. Actually, no, let's leave that in. Let's change that to confidence level. So you can see you can edit the way that the fields look within the app. Details over there. Yeah, no, let's stick with that complaint description. Fantastic. And you can also even drag labels on. So if you want to, you can go ahead and just say, let's drop in a label. There we are. And you can see you can change the way that the app actually works and looks, right? So that's pretty cool. I've been a bit naughty. Let's ditch that. We don't need that over there. Cool. Right. So very, very basic solution. What we're also going to do is we're going to go ahead and add in the detail screen. So this will actually work as well. This is when you drill into the record, you can view what the actual information looks like. In the edit screen, this is where you input data. It's very important to understand any field in the common data service that's business required, you will not be able to save the record unless the field is on the form. Okay, so what happens is the app that you build respects the data storage facility. It 100% respects it, which is really good, right? So that means your data is going to be absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. See what I did there? So in the edit screen, we're going to go ahead and change a few things. We're going to go and flip that out over there. We're going to make that a bit smaller. Just make sure we got the area code because that is business required. A couple other things, let's take a look. Do we need all these fields? Probably not, right? So we don't need the category because it does that automatically. So let's delete that. We need the ward. We don't need the unique ID. It generates that automatically. So remember what I said to you, make as few fields as possible. Date logged generates that automatically. We'll stick with remove that as well. So we need country as well in there. Great. Now what we are going to do is we're going to add in a piece of AI builder. Now we've got two cool things here. You've got mixed reality, which you can actually start leveraging mixed reality components in Canvas apps. Canvas apps, by the way, looks like PowerPoint and Excel had a love child. That's the way that I see it. Or what we can do is we can use some of our other tools. So I've got a thing called object detector. And actually, if I take a photo of maybe some graffiti or a broken window, it'll automatically tag that based on the model I trained earlier. Let's give that a second to load. Awesome. So we'll go ahead and drag that out. We just want to make sure we select the right one. So it'll be O1 object detection. I did this with Lego, by the way. So I actually did a Lego scanning app. It was mental. It worked pretty well, by the way. It took ages to scan each and every little brick, though. So what you can do is awesome. We're going to go ahead and change the theme a little bit. So let's go home theme. Make it that color there. No, actually, that is not a great color. Let's make it orange. Cool. Like I said, my design skills are not great. It's not because I have no talent. I just have no taste. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add a new screen. So we're going to make this a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. We'll move this up over there. 1, 2, 3. And you can add in a new background. So what we'll do is we'll chuck in an image. Maybe something to do with local gov or housing or something. Let's go desktop. Kaboom. Oh, that doesn't fit very well. We'll make sure it says fill. There we are. Cool. A very distorted picture of a house or set of houses. And what we're also going to do is add in a button. And what you can actually see is the button will obey the theme that you've got. So bright orange it is, definitely not going with that. And we're going to say add data. And we'll just use the formula bar over here to say action, navigate, and we'll make sure it's the browse screen. Very similar to PowerPoint, right? So there we've got our mini little app. So what I can do is I can run my app. I can say add data. That'll navigate me to my browse screen. I can click on that over there and say the county is Berkshire, area code is RG45. Oh, RG. Want to send me flowers? That's where to send them. There we go. Graffiti kids dressed as Batman running around breaking stuff. And what I'm also going to do as evidence is I'm going to actually scan one of the houses that these children have destroyed. Very upset right now. So let's go to Git. And we'll go and grab. Normally you could just use the peripherals on your device, but we'll just stick to grabbing one of the photos I've got here. Oh, let's use those windows over there. They look pretty broken, don't they? Okay, cool. So let's see if it picks it up. Oh, there we are. Awesome. So it's picked up 3 broken windows using the object detector. And all I've got to do is hit that button there and it'll save it back to the database. If I'm a mid-office user, remember I told you that this is mostly for frontline workers, mid-office users, all they would do is go into LRG complaints and they could then go ahead and pick up these issues from the get-go. There we go. Graffiti kids dressed as Batman. Done deal, right? If I refresh this, so I will give it a second. When I refresh this, it'll pick up the sentiments, it'll categorize it and allocate a confidence level. Okay, and that does take a couple of seconds. And actually what's happening in the background is Power Automate and AI Builder are managing that for me. So that and that are effectively managing the categorization for me. There we go. Right, so you can see that I've got ASB, I've got confidence level, and eventually the sentiments analysis will work. The joke I always make here, sometimes it takes a little bit of time. I remember when my mom used to kiss me goodbye at school, and I'm like, come on, mom, not in front of my friends. That's so weird. That's like when demos are slow for me. I'm like, come on, guys, not in front of my friends. So to sum it all up, right, just to break that down again, what we did was I got you all to fill out a form. I used Power Automate to populate the common data service. I antagonized or analyzed, whichever one you prefer, your data. And I was able to say, well, you know what? We need a model-driven app to take this information through a process. So model-driven is normally mid-office. And then we used a Canvas app in the front office to let our frontline workers interact with the information as well. I had AI Builder on the side that did sentiment analysis for me and also did text classification based on the information you gave me. And it was all beautifully embedded in Microsoft Teams. So I never have to leave Teams to do anything within my modern desktop. So very key just to remember that as somebody that's managing these council complaints, it's very easy for me to interact. And last little bit, which is pretty just a little bit of fun, is that every single time anyone interacted with my data, I started capturing information directly in my Teams channel and let everyone know what was going on. And also you would have received emails, by the way, with some information. So just to wrap up, right? There are some amazing places to go to get information, and Microsoft Learn is the best one. So learn.microsoft.com if you want to start learning about the Power Platform. It is very easy to build apps, but one of the things that's key is that you also need a partner to help you with those apps in the background. So not a lot of people always get the IT admin piece right. And it is very important to understand that setting up those digital guide rails will allow your citizen developers the ability to build up pretty much anything they want in a trusted environment. Okay, so again, you have visibility of everything. And like I said, better a governed free market you know than a black market you don't know. So a huge thanks from me, and thank you to Freya and Grace for having me, and thank you to all of you awesome folk in the audience for filling in my form. I hope that's been informative. And yeah, I'd love to chat and catch you again soon. And I didn't see too many questions in the chat. So if anyone wants to fire anything over, now's the time, my friends. So thank you once again. I always feel like at the end, we should have like some music, some end music.
Cool. So just looking in the chat, doesn't have any questions. If anyone has any questions afterwards, email us@visual.com and we'll get back to you, or we'll get you in touch with Chris and he can answer any of your questions.